In further developments now, the real estate industry has been identified as a sector that is attracting alleged corrupt investors. An open secrets probe has tracked 162 million rand in homes purchased by politically connected individuals, mainly from the Democratic Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea and Mozambique. This is revealed in court documents acquired from deeds office records and confidential source information following a similar investigation after a high-ranking case that brought up reasons behind the Financial Action Task Force grey list. Journalist Raeesa Pather was the lead investigator in this project and speaks to us now about these developments. Thank you so much for your time, Raeesa. Let's first talk about the court documents that have been acquired from deeds office records. How far do they go in terms of revealing the extent of the rot?
Thank you so much. So I think the deeds office records are quite interesting, right? Because in South Africa, anybody can go to the deeds office and get records about property ownership in the country. And this was quite integral to us finding new information, for example, about Jacinto Nyusi and the properties that he owns in South Africa. So Jacinto is the son of former Mozambican President Filipe Nyusi. And previously in Mozambique and around the world, it was known that Jacinto owned one property through allegedly corrupt funds in Cape Town, in Constantia. But through us searching the deeds office records from around the country, we were also able to find that he may have purchased a home in Sandhurst in Joburg worth 17 million rand, also using proceeds of potential corruption. In terms of court records, we found those particularly useful in the Mozambican case just because there's been so many court inquiries into the hidden debt scandal that we document in our report. But in terms of actually Equatorial Guinea and the DRC, there hasn't been actually much investigation and convictions in terms of those cases of corruption, which involve the Selemani family related to former President Joseph Kabila and the Obiang family, specifically Teodoro Obiang, the son of the current President Teodoro Obiang. So there's still much work to be done in terms of getting prosecutions and convictions for the crimes that relate to corruption in the DRC and Equatorial Guinea. But in all of these cases, the deeds office records were extremely helpful, and it just goes to show the importance of public access to information.
Raeesa, one could react to this with shock, and a lot has to be said about the lack of prosecution. And my questioning really is directed towards how the South African authorities are failing to pick up on some of these links, as we are grey listed and we are making some sort of effort to get off that particular grey list. And these cases are not boding well for the country.
No, absolutely not. I mean, in the case of Selemani, who is the adopted brother of Kabila, Francis Selemani, he purchased 13 properties in Gauteng worth 30 million rand. And this was between 2016 and 2018. So, you can imagine this was 30 million rand at that time, the purchase value. We filed a complaint with the NPA in April 2023 with the Platform to Protect Whistleblowers in Africa, an organization known as PLAF. Since then, we have heard no updates from the Hawks as to the status of this case. We've heard no updates from the NPA, despite several attempts to contact them for the status of the investigation. So it just goes to show that even though we have evidence and we have made complaints, law enforcement agencies have failed to follow up on the complaints that we've made. In the case of Teodoro Obiang, his relationship with corruption is well known. The Department of Justice in the US found, in quotes, that Obiang had looted his country's public coffers. French authorities and authorities in the UK made similar findings, and yet Obiang's properties in South Africa have not been investigated for any potential links to corruption. Instead, they were only seized because a disgruntled businessman made a civil claim against him for damages. And it's the same with the Nyusi family. It's been known that Mozambican politically exposed families bought properties in South Africa with corrupt proceeds. And yet, for some reason, the authorities haven't yet taken action to investigate and make prosecutions. And as you say, this is particularly important in terms of us exiting the grey list. And we need to ensure that our lawyers and our estate agents are, in fact, abiding by the FICA, which is so important for that exit from the grey list.
Absolutely. As a parting shot, though, would it be justifiable to say that South Africa may be in a position where we do not have the right capacity in terms of criminally prosecuting natures of financial abuse in the country? We've seen many other cases related to the likes of the Steinhoff saga and so many other documented ones that do not make it as far as this in terms of media exposure. What's to be said about South Africa limping in this regard still?
Well, it's unacceptable. We as taxpayers must, we pay these public funds to ensure that the Hawks and the National Prosecuting Authority are operational and functional, and they have legal mandates to perform their duties. If they don't perform their duties, we won't exit the grey list because it is a requirement that law enforcement agencies must prosecute, investigate, and convict financial crimes in order for us to exit the grey list. And so I don't think we can simply say, oh, there's a lack of capacity or, there's a lack of skills within these agencies. I think the NPA and the Hawks have had a very long time now to upskill and to resource themselves to be able to prosecute these cases and investigate and convict them. I think it's important going forward that we just don't accept this as being the status quo and that we continue to pressure for financial crimes and other complex crimes to be prosecuted and convicted.
Thank you so much for your input. Journalist Raeesa Pather there speaking to us about the findings of an open secrets study that highlights money laundering alleged that is within the real estate sector in South Africa.